I think one of the cool things you said that your eyes kind of lit up and you were like, we can charge all this money and stuff. And that's something that we've never talked about on the podcast is pricing. Like, so how have you guys kind of like walk me through the psychology? Because that's one of those things, especially if you're entering like a completely new market, you can position it like, okay, well, I'm replacing 3 full-time employees and their average salary is this, and then we'll divide it by 3 or something. Or we can look at our competitors and they're charging this. And either we want to be positioned as a premium product, we want to go higher, or we want to be considered the value solution. Like, walk us through your thoughts on that. I'm sure there's probably a couple iterations of that.
Yeah, we are still iterating our pricing. Like, pricing is really hard. I think it's the hardest. I think it's one of the hardest things we've had to do. And it matters so much because so much of how you're judged is your revenue. And we kind of have settled on this point in time on, kind of we change pricing based on the number of employees at a company. We never did like seats, because that was one thing that we decided early on. 2 things about our pricing is we always wanted it to be unlimited reports. We didn't want to charge by report, and we wanted unlimited users. So we didn't want to charge for seats, because we felt like the more people were in the platform, the more information we would get, the more prolific it would become, the more sticky our platform would be within a company. Because if that one person that has a seat leaves, then nobody else there uses it, and then they try to cancel. And so that was important. And really, the great thing about technology is because the cost to run a Transect report is pretty minimal. I mean, that's the great thing about technology. It's the computer does it. And so we've been fortunate that we've been able to experiment with pricing. And I don't know, Sam's on the growth team, so he can probably talk about pricing a little bit more, but I feel like this is like a massive journey. It's just, it's really hard to figure out pricing. And, but we did know that we always wanted those 2 things to be important, like unlimited seats, unlimited users, because we didn't want to be like have like fiefdoms about who could access our technology and who couldn't. Because even the existing GIS tools out there, they still have seats, and we want it to be different.
I think it's a pretty unique problem, not only for enterprise software, but specifically for companies that are dealing, with energy related markets like you guys are, or construction or whatever it may be. Like, if you think about SaaS, the economics of SaaS tools in the consumer market, it's a lot easier to figure out, okay, what's the willingness to pay of the market? We can generate a demand curve, figure out our price elasticity, things of that nature. But when you're trying to do that for an enterprise market where, like if you're looking at midstream companies, for example, there's not that many midstream companies, right? And so you don't have a whole lot of chances to play around with the pricing model and figure out, you can't do a survey on the market and figure out, okay, what are these guys willing to pay and things of that nature. So it's interesting because you start looking at, okay, do we go on a model where we charge by seats, or, charge by how many reports you generate? And so you have to start getting really creative with those things. Whereas, if you look at pricing models of, say Slack or some other, tool like that, their pricing models are pretty easy to figure out and get to pretty quickly. But I think that it's a unique problem that companies like you guys have, and you have to put a lot of brain power and bandwidth into figuring it out. So
yeah, and there's also kind of an education piece, because our users aren't typically used to a whole lot of B2B SaaS opportunities. So the concept of paying for a subscription that you kind of have all access to all the time and getting this to be part of their business process is a bit of an education piece. Also, because our technology, we have no competitors. We're not just another communication tool like Slack is, right? It is hard to, part of our sales process definitely involves really understanding our users' processes right now and thinking really creatively about how to fit in to that process. And then we have to talk about, okay, so, if this is your process now, what does that pricing look like? Are you subbing out this kind of work to a subcontractor? Are you not doing it at all? Are you doing it in-house? And how much time and money does that take you? And so because all of our users have different use cases, because they have different processes and things like that, I think that's contributed to pricing too. Because if you're subbing it out to a consultant, you're used to paying maybe more. But if you do it in-house, you're not used to paying anything for it.
Yeah.
It's just going to your overhead, so your existing staff. And so we're talking to a lot of different people that are fitting Transect into a lot of different places in their existing process. And it's hard to kind of find a consistent pricing comparison pricing model.
So you guys really take it from the approach of, you look at, okay, what is a company spending today on their traditional processes and workflows? How much value are we actually creating? And how much money are we saving them at the end of the day? And then
money and time.
A
lot of them, you know, a lot of our bigger clients, they're like, yeah, money is kind of a thing, but they really love the time piece of it.
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, sometimes money isn't the problem.
Yeah. If you
it's
make
like
them more efficient,
they don't want to wait a few weeks for somebody outside of their company to tell them, or they don't have a good resource, or they, you know, they're like, I'm frustrated. I want to know this information, but I don't know where to get it. So that's the value for them, is the time piece, getting it just 90
reminded
seconds.
Me. Remember, we had that midstream company reach out to us one time with this exact problem. They're like, yeah, you know, we're building these pipelines, and, you know, the C-suite will want to report on, hey, where are we at in this pipeline in terms of permitting and issues? And they asked us, like, do you know anyone that can help us build this? And for them, it was efficiency. It's like, it takes us a month to a month and a half to generate that and get it back up to the C-suite. We want something that we can, you know, within a few days or a week, have that information.
Yeah.
They were looking at it.
We should link you guys up with them, because this is the exact solution.
They went out of business. So,
sorry. We didn't get into
it. But what they had wanted on that was interesting, because they wanted to use it essentially as like a project management tool, but with like a graphical mapping interface of being able to like see a pipeline. Like, we literally wanted like sections like highlighted as it was done, and then all of the data, like all the financials you can see alongside that, which I thought was a really cool concept. And to my knowledge, I've never seen anything like that built. So do you guys look at your tool as kind of like a project management, or do you see it as the resource just for the environmental side?
Just for due diligence tool?
Yeah, our Laine is really natural resources, but we do have, you know, we've got sharing, and we've got capability where you can have kind of like teams in there. But yeah, our you look like you want to say something. Our Laine is basically natural resources. I mean, that's what we're good at. There's other groups out there that have project management tools and that do like hazardous material stuff, phase 1 ESA type stuff. Like that's other people do that well, and that's not where we play.